the predictions that are bold enough for you to make, but also allegedly predictions that you'd be willing to bet on. Now, I'm all about the first one. The first one could have been submitted by me. It wasn't. I would never corrupt our process here. But the first one looks like it was submitted by me. Brian in Ames, Iowa, said Iowa State will win the Big 12. Well, Brian, not that bold to me. I believe. I'm sold. They have the fifth best odds to win the Big 12 right now, but it's the Big 12. So everybody has a shot. The top 7 or 8 or 9 teams have odds. They've got good experience at quarterback with Rocco Becht returning. They've got top 5 returning production both sides of the ball. I think it's a spike year for Matt Campbell. This is like a 7 on the boldness scale. Look, I don't want to give away the farm, but Iowa humor. But there is a chance I may even outright predict this in the fall. Will there be bias involved? Of course there will be. We're not doing journalism here. I will wave the pom-pom. You don't want to see me if this actually happens. If it turns you off to see puffed out chests, don't watch this show if Iowa State wins the Big 12. Don't. Now, if they lose it and you want to see egg all over someone's face, that's cool. But if they win the Big 12, just don't show up for a couple of weeks. I'm going to make that a 7 on the boldness scale. I legitimately do think there's a decent shot of it happening. But we're not going legit when we go Iowa State. How about this next one? So you want some boldness. The rational Buckeye says Texas A&M goes 11-1, goes to the college football playoff. Now, he didn't specify whether they win the SEC championship game, but I figure if they go 11-1, they're in Atlanta, and whether they win there or not, they're going to the playoff. So doesn't really matter here. That's semantics. This is a 9.5 on the boldness scale. So you're going for 9.5s or better, because if you submit a bold prediction that ends up being 9.5 or higher, and it hits, you get a chalice of supremacy. And my goal is for none of you to win a chali that way. I want you to win them other ways. Their over-under win total is 8.5. So also FanDuel has the odds for you to make or miss the playoff. A&M right now is plus 290 to make the playoff. They're minus 385 to miss the playoffs. But if they go 11-1, here's what has to happen. You got Notre Dame, Missouri, LSU, and Texas just at home. You go to Florida, to South Carolina, and to Auburn. They're losing one of those games and no more. That's not technically impossible, but that's tough. This would be one of the stories of the year in college football. Obviously, it means Connor Wegman has his breakout year. And also, let's just say that happened. So we're sitting here and it's the week of the conference title game. They're 11-1. Dude, how bad does that make Jimbo Fisher look? It would make Mike Elko look great. How bad would that make Fisher look? So, and here's another question. Would Jimbo pull for that to happen? Truth serum injected into him. Does Jimbo want to see that happen? Next up, we go to the Big Ten, which could be the Northeast or the Northwest, as it turns out. Let's go with Oregon beating Ohio State twice, once in the regular season, once in the Big Ten championship game. All right, I made this one an 8.5. So, Oregon plays Ohio State in Eugene in Week 6. It's one of the games of the year in college football. FanDuel has a number on the game. Anyone want to guess? Ohio State at Oregon. What would you make the point spread? Let's see if you're any good at bookmaking. Time's up. Ohio State minus 1.5. Buckeyes are favored, as of now, on the road. And so you got to beat them there. It's just doable, very doable. It's nearly a pick'em game at home. Then you got to go to Indianapolis several weeks later, and you got to beat them again. So the first thing we have to do is get both teams in the conference title game, and then you got to have Oregon win both of those games. Basically, you got to have Oregon pull on Ohio State what Washington pulled on Oregon last year. I just flat out think that's really hard to do. I know that's some expert analysis for you. That is really hard to do because I would think about there would be this weird thing potentially with Ohio State. So let's say Ohio State's only loss in the regular season is to Oregon, which means they beat Penn State. They beat Michigan. They get that monkey off their back in the rivalry. But then they go to Indy and they lose again. Ohio State's probably in the playoff. That's going to be one of those weird situations where Ohio State could lose to the same team twice, but 11-2, they're probably going to the playoff. And they could see Oregon a third time in the playoff. What if they beat Oregon the third time around? How about you go 1-2 against a team in a year, but you end up eliminating them? That'd be fun. That's great. That's the true spirit of college football. But you go to Indianapolis and you play them. I just look at that team and how loaded they are and how tough it would be to beat them again, kind of in their backyard, after they've worked their entire season to get another shot at you. I'm going to make that one an 8.5. It's actually really respectful of Oregon that it's only an 8.5. Beating Ohio State twice is really hard to do. Beating them once is really hard to do. And lastly, I have an announcement. We have a 10. We have a 10 on the boldness scale here. Listen to this. Tennessee beats Georgia and Alabama by a combined 30 points. Paper pop. All right, it's a 10. The last time Tennessee even beat Bama and Georgia, period, in the same season was 2006, and that wasn't by a combined 30 points. However, you don't have to go back to the 1700s to find this happening. As recently as 1999, Tennessee did beat Georgia and Bama in the same year by more than a combined 30 points. It's just not going to happen this year, so that's why it's a 10. They have Alabama at home on the 19th of October. They go to Georgia in November. Now, if you find some way to beat Bama by 28 and then you beat Georgia by 3, maybe. I don't see either. Well, I especially don't see the 4-touchdown win happening, but you would probably have to lopside it here. Beating both of them by 17 and 14 respectively, that's probably not in the cards. And look, just go 2-0 against them, and it's a pretty big upset. I'm making that one a 10. And we've had a couple of 10s, I think, so far. That one definitely counts.